Hey, it's night again. So here I am. Got here a little early so that I got all fired up earlier, you guys. I got all fired up because I was listening to an older uh, episode of How to Hunt with Steve. And it led to this like comment. Every once in a while, Steve gives commentary. Most of the time, he doesn't really say much between emails. But every once in a while, one gets him and he'll give a commentary about what's been presented or being presented or whatever through that email or over the course of however long he's been doing it, which is, I think, like 5 years or something like that. Well, no, he's really been on the internet for a lot longer than that. Anyway, doesn't matter. But he was this person wrote in with this situation, right? And it was a very like, oh man, like that would really get you. That would really be terrible to go through in regards to Sasquatch, right? And for whatever reason, in the way that the person like worded it, their email, oh no, okay, I was gonna sneeze. But anyway, the way that the person worded their email, it just caught Steve, I guess, in a way. And the Steve goes, he's like, do you guys, he's like, if any of you guys have ever heard about in Africa, sometimes like in Canada, right, and different places, they have to do what's called culling. And that is like, you have to, and in order to, for conservation's sake, you have to take out like certain individuals of the species so that like it's rejuvenated, like the rest of the species is rejuvenated to keep going and moving forward. But like, because in certain kinds of situations, and I've seen this in my personal experience, I've seen this in relation to deer in certain places where I've lived before, where the deer population takes advantage of all the predators stay away from humans. So the deer realize that the people like to see them, and so they keep real close to like the houses and yards and stuff and properties of people, and no predators come and get them. So then their population explodes, and there's a lot of crazy inbreeding and like deformities, and so, and it's unnatural. It's not good. And there has to be, at some sort of level, some conservation has to happen in these populations that are out of control in these deficient sort of ways. It's not a numbers game at that point. It's a problem. You know what I mean? It's going to create a genetic problem for everyone if this isn't addressed. This isn't a natural component to their development. This isn't a natural component. They're not supposed to be in these numbers. They're not supposed to be in this excess. They're not supposed to be to these kinds of levels. And it is just like in these kinds of concentrations, it just doesn't end well. So, but what Steve has dealt with this in a lot of ways in British Columbia with wolves, and he's talked a lot about like how he does a conservation with bears. It's insane. Like he will, through trail cameras, he will monitor populations of animals to the point that he's like, he knows specifically which bear and that the bear is at least such and such years old, and is in his mouth, his literal mouth, is filled with so many cavities and abscesses in his teeth that he's close to, like, essentially dying, an awful, 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 major suffering kind of death. And that's the one that Steve goes for. He's the oldest, some of the largest, you know what I mean? But like, he's headed in a real bad negative direction for him personally, you know, the bear personally. And that's the one, this is 21st century, like, intelligent conservation. You take that out, he's about to suffer and die in a terrible way. If you remove him from the food chain, the younger ones get to come up and into his position of dominance, etc., etc., etc. It's just better for everything. And so, like, he was talking about, like, that. He was like, in Africa, they have to cull elephants every once in a while because their populations will blow up. And he's like, and then these like super pods or whatever of males and big bulls will, like, they'll go crazy. They'll reach levels to where they'll go crazy, and they're just always aggressive all the time. There's never a calm day, you know what I mean? And like, and they'll just charge anything and everyone and just be like psychotic level destructive against everything, any living thing, because they can't get out of that, like, rut mentality because of these unnatural formations of all these numbers of males. And so, like, they'll have to, like, go into the population, and they'll have to hunt these to reduce these numbers so that everything stabilizes again. And he's like, Steve was talking about, these bull elephants will charge literally any living thing. Most of the time, elephants don't give a damn about humans. Like, you only got 2 legs, you're not big, you're not, you know what I mean? You're not, you know, we understand who you are, you like to ride us. You're like, it's not this isn't a problem sort of relationship, right? For either side. Either side's very familiar with the other. And so for a grown adult elephant that's so familiar with, like, to charge, like, they'll do this bullying, and that's the term Steve used. They'll do this tactic where they'll charge any person, and they'll charge, and they'll charge, and they'll charge. And it's all to, like, do that rut male, like, I'm gonna hurt you, kind of like constantly, like, threatening to fight and threatening to kill and threatening to be violent with each other kind of thing. Except it's aimed at everything, right? Where in situations where, like, obviously it doesn't even make sense. You're not trying to outmate a human with elephants, are you? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make sense to charge at a tree or a person, or, you know what I mean? Like, these elephants have lost their touch on reality and their grip on the normal life processes. And probably due to their proximity to people and mankind. But anyway, they'll do this bullying tactic, and they'll try to intimidate. He's like, but these hunters that cull them know these techniques to where they'll defeat these charges of these crazy bull elephants, right? And he's like, they know, he's like, these African cullers, like, elephant cullers, they, like, know how to defeat these charges, and they won't back down an inch. And then he's like, he takes that sort of situation and relates it to what his thing, you know, the topic is for him. And he's like, I've known bullies my whole life. He's like, bullies come up in every group, you know what I mean? He's like, there's lots of bullies in humans. There's he's like, but there can be bullies in anything. And he's like, and then there is, bully behavior. and that intimidation, that constant, like, you know, back down, I'm gonna hurt you, kind of overbearing, ruddish sort of like type style of like of aggression, like that, this overly aggressive kind of thing. And he's like that pretty much. Oh my gosh, it's getting so hot again. He's like that pretty much encompasses the entire narrative. I say narrative. The entire, what should we call it, ethos of the Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Sabe universe, how to hunt universe. Like, he's like, that's how I would describe the treatment of the humans by the Sasquatch every time, in almost all cases, right? He's like, with some exceptions, whatever. You know, I think he mentioned there's been quite a few people that have said stuff like, you know, this mountain lion had me, I was dead, I was going to be killed by this mountain lion, because I was just now noticing it, like I was just turning, and because I had just detected the movement, the cat was going to kill me. It had me by complete surprise, and as I turned, I saw the cat. You know, like, there's been a couple where rocks have been used to, like, essentially pummel the cat to death. It seems like there's one or two where, like, literally the Sasquatch just caught the cat mid-air jump, like, you know what I mean, like leap, caught him in mid-air, broke his neck, and taken him, you know, away or whatever. But like, most of the time, was Steve's point, was most of the time the interactions that are reported are very bully-esque from the Sasquatch side and point of view, right? You're harassing these humans that have none of, like, he's always saying, like, no one asks to be a part of the Club of No Return, which is what he calls someone who himself or any of these people that have had these experiences. The Club of No Return is you've witnessed this being, one of these, you've had one of these interactions, you've seen this, and witness this, and you didn't ask for it, and it, like, everybody is changed, no matter who it is. Everybody, like, I think about it every day. They are changed from then on after these experiences. And he was like, most of these experiences, the Sasquatch is behaving very much like a bully. You're super fast, you're super strong, you're telepathic, all these things, and you do this intimidation tactic stuff to everyone all the time, like all these people all the time, like a bully. And I guess I had never heard Steve talk about that. I guess I've heard him talk about bullies in regards to people, but never like the Sasquatch stuff, because I was like, actually, that's pretty brilliant. That's really, and it's funny because, like I've said before, in the whole NHI Spectrum story, Steve is at the cutting edge of his branch of it. And it's funny because, like, there's so much happening all the time in the information that's rolling into Steve, and it's always new. Every day is new, right? And it's just, it's awesome because he is like, I don't know. There are lots of other Bigfoot styled YouTube things. I don't watch any of them. I'm not interested in any of them. because I love Steve's methodology and the way he presents the information that he has. It doesn't, like, they've done all of that behind the scenes, and like, sorry, you've just made some video on the internet. Like, Steve's doing it word for word from the people. This is what's happened. These people don't know each other. This, you know what I mean? Like, it's as fair and legit as it could be done. And it's slow, but it's constantly new. And in his branch of the NHI Spectrum story, he is on the cutting edge of his portion of it. And I love that, because what he was saying about the Sasquatch stuff, and they predominantly treating humans in a very bullying way, and that being very true, like, very true, very true. I mean, like, you don't even have to, like, all the time, like, cheap, mean stuff that is only to freak people out, right? Like, bully would be a good word to describe this kind of typical behaviors that humans are at the receiving end of from these entities. Whatever you think these entities are, these Sasquatch beings, okay? So, but like, that's an apt description, bully. And that made me go from that to like the rest of the NHI. I'm like, that's extremely true. And it just made me go to the rest of the NHI Spectrum story of like these people that have had abduction experiences and interactions with alien beings and all this kind of stuff. And if you look at it from the kind of like power dynamic that Steve is speaking of, like with the Sasquatch, like all of the stuff that happens to these people typically, right? I'll just break it down real quick. It's cheap jump scare stuff on purpose to obviously elicit a reaction of intense fear on purpose, intentionally, with that on the target human. Like, that's all that you need. From bashing trees, you know, like hitting a tree with another piece of wood that's right next to a person, or what it's, or that you watch them walk and you follow their footsteps just close enough that they can hear your footsteps, and every time they stop, you stop just a second too late. Like, all this intentionally jump scare. Like, okay, there's all these hunters in a hunting cabin. They're all asleep. They're all sleeping after hunting all day long, and they're all in the cabin or whatever. It doesn't even have to be hunters. Like, that's too nice. Like, a bunch of men in a group, like, that's way too nice. But like a family camping, a husband, a wife, and some kids, and they're all in this cabin, and everybody's sleeping after hiking and having a good day and all this stuff, and you just walk up to the house and hit it as hard as you can. You're a 12-foot being. You hit the wall as hard as you can. You make the entire structure shake, and then you leave and do whatever you do or whatever, and like, everybody's freaked out. The dad's out there with a gun and is like in his underwear. The like children are like scared absolutely out of their minds. Like, come on. Like, this is mean-spirited usually, right? It's a pretty mean-spirited, very bullying thing. And like if you take that sort of paradigm, interaction paradigm there into the other areas of the NHI spectrum story, there seems to be like even in instances where like I talked a couple videos ago about that Australian school one where like it was all the students, it was like the Zimbabwe except Australia, and all the students were at recess and basically, and the thing just landed next to the playground, and it like said a bunch of encouraging stuff and then just left or whatever, and like it was a bunch of like telepathic, like, oh, you humans are so good and you have so much potential, and beware of like technology reliance and stuff, and losing like connection to nature or whatever. Okay, I would consider that a positive alien interaction, right? A positive, nice things were communicated, you know what I mean? Like that's on the positive end of the scale, right? But most of the time, okay, all of these people that have stated in one way or another through intermediaries or themselves or however they've done it throughout the decades and decades and decades of UFO, UAP, alien disclosure movement stuff, right? Most of the time, when it comes to the NHI aliens, no matter what they look like, and the people, even when it's positive, the power dynamic at play is not at all even. Okay? It's not at all even, and humans are consistently on the wrong end of it. Not always. Like, for instance, imagine being, I said this, a video or so ago, like whenever, but imagine being the alien beings in the thing that crashed in Roswell. Like the worst thing in your existence just happened to you, and it's now you're going to be taken and done God knows what to by the darkest elements of all of human secret stuff. Like, no thank you. You know what I mean? So like that's an exception. The CIA being able to detect, see, and then shoot down craft that you can't see with the naked eye is another exception, right? Like these things happening, like there are exceptions, but most of the time when it comes to interactions with these alien beings, just like with most of the interactions with the Sasquatch, it's the power dynamic at present in these moments that these things happen is not at all like not at all even. No. The power dynamic is never for the person. Because usually it's not like the whole military showed up and they got abducted. Like, no. It's like, I, got sucked up out of my house and I woke up on a table chained to it. And, they came and did awful things. And it was the most nightmarish experience of my entire existence. I wake up and have nightmares. Like, but like, there's tons of those. But really, there's obvious bullying styled interactions. But even when it's positive, the power dynamic is never on the human side. Have you noticed that? The power dynamic is never with the people. And what's funny about this is in my mind, I relate this to something else that it seems very connected to. Just like the power dynamic is never on the human side, even when it's positive. But like, even when it's positive, they did just land their craft next to your playground, and now you're being communicated with telepathically in a way that you've obviously never communicated. And let's just say it's the most intense moment of your life, right? None of that power dynamic is, even though nice thing, like positive, that power dynamic is not a fair one. It's just not, right? Plus, these are children. Like, but what that seems connected to me, right, is, and I want to preface this by saying, I think that there's a natural human compulsion to jump on bandwagons and participate in thought things. Like, I guess you would call them psyops, but eventually a good psyop is participated with at a level that no one knows that they're actually participating with a psyop, or they're participating with something that was thrown out once and it's like a false paradigm or a false idea or whatever it is. And one of those, okay, I've talked about it many times. One of those false paradigms that lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of people are participating with, all the channels I watch on a regular basis, with the exception of Steve, because obviously, but all the channels on all the alien stuff that I follow or whatever, every single one of them have said this in one way or another. Everybody who's ever been asked to comment on the topic on a regular, semi-regular basis at any level, their opinion at all, has said this at one time or another. And I think that they're participating in something that A, is not true, but B, was something that was deliberately said. And it's like Jordan Peterson says, right? That there's true and false, but then there's anti-truths. Things that are like malignant in the way they've been made to be made false. So it's like a weaponization of a portion of the truth, right? So it's like it's like the anti-truth. And everyone I've ever watched in regards to these UFO stuff has said in regards to these aliens, right, that there's no way these beings would have to be so advanced that there's no way we could understand their motivations or the psychology behind why they do anything, or anything about them as a life form, or what they, in the same way it's communicated about AI in the same way, really, how, like, eventually, and I mean, I believe this one, like, AI reaches a level computationally, it's already, essentially, that's what they talk about in the news or in regards to AI all the time, how all of these people that are doing all this stuff with AI, they have no idea how it really works or not. Like, they're just like, they think they might know, and they sort of try to figure it out, but like, it's just doing some stuff, really, at the end of the day, that they're like, well, it's cool. I mean, you know, what do you want? Like, but yeah, Who knows how it came up with that answer? I don't know. You know what I mean? But I believe that because eventually that stuff gets so fast and powerful and goes quantum computer style speed that no, you can't obviously literally comprehend. You know what I mean? Like how it works. Right? Like at this point, like eventually if we stopped everything now after like 50 years, we might be able to crunch the numbers long enough to be, oh, okay, well, this is the logic tree it used or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But that concept of being at the rung end of the totem pole when it comes to like any interaction of any alien life form, and them being so superior to us that there's no way that our dumbasses are able to understand anything about them. This is a false paradigm that has been offered to society, I think, the most and deliberately. The most and deliberately by the science cult people. They're the ones who sort of started this, and it sort of spread throughout the rest of society because I think people look at them as like legit and they want to sound legit too. But then people are sort of just don't think about why they say the certain things they do in regards to these topics. And this is one. This is one of those false paradigms because it's obvious in every single interaction with the UFOs. It's obvious in every single interaction with how to hunt. And all of these interactions with the Sasquatch, Sabe, Bigfoot, and it like all over the NHI spectrum of all the stuff that's ever been said. Not only is that power dynamic not fair to the humans, but in every single one of these instances, in every single one of the NHI seem to know full well who they're dealing with. And by that, we can infer that obviously, if they can understand us, we must be able to understand them. And to think that the very basic natural, like happens in nature every single day, down to the basic prey predator roles and stuff like that, and aggression and all these things that humans have come naturally by on Earth, to think that these things are outthought or whatever. The older we get, the more the species develops, the more that, you know, they're just all beyond that, right? No. Listen to, think about any abduction story you've ever heard. I woke up chained to a table. They were obviously about to do terrible things to me. They did terrible things to me. Unless I called out to Jesus Christ. The Sasquatch followed me and obviously was a step behind. And every time I'd stop, it would stop half a step after me. So that I obviously could tell that he was just right over there, but I couldn't see him. I'm trying to sleep with my family, camping and having a great time out in the mountains doing awesome things. We're all asleep and obviously not a threat to anyone, and half the wall gets bashed in the cabin we're sleeping. Like, you know what I mean? On and on and on. And even when it's positive, the power dynamic is not a fair or even one when you can communicate with me in a way and force that way onto me that I've never done before. Okay? Sasquatch, the telepathy, even when that is a positive situation, The telepathy, mind speak is not something we all know how to do. It's forced on the person. All these alien species, all of these interactions, all this telepathic stuff, you humans are so great and you have so much more potential and you don't even know your own potential. Yeah, except, well, you know, I did just get here in a spacecraft and I'm talking to you without moving my mouth in a way that you've never experienced before, and this is probably sort of freaking you out, isn't it? Like, that is a thing. That is a thing. And I never thought of it or looked at it like that before. But that is a thing in this. And it doesn't bode well. It doesn't bode well for this whole story. Because I'm going to tell you what. Like, for instance, the Sasquatch, every once in a while, they come across a person who doesn't react like they are used to, right? And that's how Steve said, there's a lot of cowardice in bullies. And when you these aliens, man, and these NHI, no matter what you're dealing with, they know who they're messing with. And they know that most of the time they can win out with these effects and these sort of powers and cheap tricks and in sort of at distant effect sort of things and get them right. But every once in a while you abduct the wrong person. Every once in a while you try to intimidate, and take a step just after, and you try to intimidate the wrong person, and he just turns and shoots your ass in the face. Like, there's something to that, and it leads into the paradigm of how humans see themselves in regards to whatever this NHI business is. Anyway, guys, all right, on that note, I gotta get in there. I hope that y'all sleep well. God help us get through the rest of this week. All right. Love y'all. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.